Yo, back at it again, and today I am speed drawing a non-Dream SMP related character this time. So yeah, and also I have now made a script for this video, so I'm actually prepared this time. Isn't that just marvelous? I'm actually putting some effort, even though I don't have a reason to do so. Oh, and also there's gotta be some problems with the lighting. Some parts look different from one another, and I wanna apologize for that. I record these videos part by part, sometimes taking breaks in between. So I try to experiment which lighting is best suited for the video, depending on the time of day as well. Anyways, yeah, Nora, the Blue Wild. Let's talk about her. So Nora is a part of my story along with Tekken. Their stories are a small part of something big. Obviously, I can only write the story for now, so I'm thinking of making a Wattpad account. And I'll post the stories in detail over there, so there's gotta be some extra spicy detail and information on Nora and Tekken's story. Anyways, back to Nora. First, about this drawing of her. She is canonically around 20 to 30 years old, so she is relatively young. She is a descendant of a mysterious race known as Valks. The Valks are a sub-race of Giftens, and they all possess bird-like features, and their main goal is to evolve their kind into what they call their perfect forms. The Valks consider their race to be imperfect, as some possess beaks, tails, claws for hands and for feet. They believe that only their wings should be part of their bodies, which then they would consider themselves to be perfect. They use many methods in order to try and evolve into their perfect forms. These methods range from arranged marriages to studying genetics in order to try and mutate their kind into perfection. A few decades later, a marriage was arranged between two Valks who were considered to be close to perfection. The current leader of the Valks and a beautiful blue female Valk, whose only flaw according to her people is her feathered body. A few years later, the Valk bore a healthy baby girl. Although she was quite happy with her new daughter, the Valks despised her newborn. The child had her wings in place of her arms. She inherited bird-like feet from her father and a tail. The father was especially disappointed, but the mother did not give up on her child. But a few months later, the father had enough. Considering what's best for their kind, he tried to reason with the mother that trying for another baby would be the best option. She also agreed with the idea that it would be the best to do so, but she wanted to have their firstborn grow into a decent age before they would have another baby. But as the months passed, the father grew impatient. The two would argue every day till night, and then the father had a plan. One day, a Valk that the mother knew very well in the past visited their home. They had a nice chat with each other, talking about their relationship in the past, and sent his congratulations to the mother for her child, and wishes the best for them. The mother thanks him for his support, but his expression slowly changed from a nice and gentle look to a more serious one, filled with anger and sadness. The mother, worried, asked if he had any concerns. The man sighed and explained everything. He would tell the mother about the father's plans to stage the death of her child, so that the mother would want to try for another baby again. The mother, absolutely disgusted, shocked, and filled with rage against the father for planning such a stunt against his own daughter, wanted to have a word with him. But her friend would persuade her to keep it a secret, as he has a plan to stop the leader of the Valks, and he needed her help. And so they agreed to cooperate with one another on how to stop the father's plan. According to him, it will occur in 5 days. But 3 days until the alleged day, the mother would find her child to be missing. Fear struck her heart as the thought of her beloved child's death made her pale and sick to her stomach. She immediately flew outside of the house and to the expected location where the father would execute his plan: to drop the mother's child down a bottomless cliff. But what she saw was unexpected. She saw the same man who was helping her get apprehended by the other Valks. As she screamed for the Valks to let go of him, another Valk gave her the baby. Confused, she wanted an explanation from the other Valks. They said that the man who was helping her was actually trying to kill the child himself. They saw him sneak into the house and took the baby. He attempted to drop her down the cliff, but they stopped him. Shocked, the mother immediately asked the man if it was all true, but he stayed silent. She was crushed and felt betrayed. She immediately slapped him, but the Valk who gave her the child tried to tell her not to hurt him, but it was too late. She slapped him so hard that the spell that was restraining him on his face was shattered. This brought the mother even deeper into confusion, but the man immediately looked up at her and exclaimed that the child she was holding in her arms was not hers. He exclaimed that the Valks were aware of the father's plans and cooperated with him, and someone found out that they knew about the plan as well, so they tried to frame him instead. The Valks tried to cut him off by pinning his face downward into the ground, but it was too late as he told the mother that the father is going to drop her child in the opposite edge of where they were. A heavy weight fell on the mother's shoulders as she realizes what this meant. She looks down at the child in her arms and slowly laid it down to the ground. She stood straight but had her head down. The Valks tried to surround her and stall her for time. She immediately flew up, and the other Valks followed, but as they chased the mother down, the commotion helped the man to break free from the Valks' hold and follow the others to help her. As the mother swerves and flanks the other Valks, each time she would lose a few of them, but one managed to grab a hold of her and used a tree to anchor themselves. As the mother desperately tries to free herself from the Valks' hold, more of them came to stop her. But they were quickly struck down by the mother's friend. He then proceeded to help her escape. He would stay and distract the others as the Valks charged at him with full force. Each second, the mother got closer to the father and her dearest child, but each second, her beloved daughter might be falling to her doom. Adrenaline started to kick in, and she flew like she never flew before. She saw the father dropping her child down. She yelled at him to stop, but it was too late. In an instant, the mother quickly dove down to save her child. As she flew down, she heard the father call her name as she travels downward into the bottomless forest below. After a few moments, the father came back to his senses and followed the mother down. As he descended, he saw the mother. She was badly injured and unconscious. The father immediately held the mother in his arms. He tried to speak with her, but to no avail. He contemplates whether or not this was the right thing to do. The other Valks came after they have defeated and apprehended her friend, and they were shocked to see the mother's current state. They rescued her, and the child was nowhere to be found. A few decades later, a man by the name of Ted Arsen was a normal human who had a passion for photography and is a bird-watching fanatic. He resided in the edge of Undertale, a large human city. Ever since Ted was in high school, there was a legend of a mythical bird-like creature roaming the forests and jungles. Although many doubted and denied the legend, Ted believed it wholeheartedly till this very day. As he was roaming the deep forests with his group of friends, he heard something peculiar coming from the distant trees. Confused, he asked his friends if they heard it as well. They heard nothing as they talked, so they brushed it off as his mind playing tricks on him. Ted decided to take their word with a grain of salt. Later, he heard the noise again and told his friends. They questioned if Ted was feeling ill, but he swore he heard the same noise again. He explained that it was human-like, that he heard it from the distant trees. The others didn't believe him and decided to call it for the day. Ted, although disappointed, decided to call it there as well as his feet grew tired. But then he heard the same sound again. He noticed that the creature making the sound must be leaving this area. Ted began to panic, knowing that the creature might never come back again. He decided to follow the sound, but because of his sudden decision, he forgot to tell the others. As he walked through the foliage and past the trees, he jumped as the noise he heard before was loud and close. He decided to quicken his pace as he stayed vigilant for the mysterious creature or anything dangerous lurking among the woods. A few hours later, and Ted hasn't heard the noise in ages and was beginning to lose hope. He finally gave up and decided to head back as his friends may be worried about him. But then the same noise Ted heard was in the direction of where he was headed. He decided to run after the noise, until a huge silhouette flew above his head. He could hear the loud flapping of this creature's wings. He felt the same way as the first time he heard the chopping of a helicopter's wings, although it was unclear. The silhouette seemed to be even bigger than a helicopter. It flew by him instantly. He followed this creature into a beautiful hidden area, like from the MMORPGs that he used to play. There was a small waterfall that fell into a deeper layer, where a lake resided at the bottom. It's surrounded by trees at the top, but there were only a few on the bottom layers. He then saw the creature he was following on one of the large trees at the top. It was facing the other way. It had light blue feathers with white tips that resembles the waterfall. It was gorgeous, but one thing that he was confused about was the fact that its feathers on its head seemed to resemble long flowing hair as it connected to its back. Ted decides to move closer to the creature to inspect its looks, and then it suddenly flew towards its direction. In a panic, he crawled into a ball and used his hands to cover his head. He felt the presence of the creature pass him by, so he decided to keep following it. But then he lost the creature and is now in the middle of the forest with no knowledge of where he was. As he thinks of a way to get out of his situation, his body caught up to his mind, and the fatigue of chasing the creature for so long finally settled in. He took a rest under a big tree, but then he felt something touch his left shoulder. He looked behind him and there was nothing. So he looked as to what touched his jacket, and saw bird-like feces dripping down his left shoulder. As the foul smell fills his nostrils, he quickly took off the jacket and slammed it to the ground. But then he realized and looked up to see a woman with bird-like features. He was stunned, but immediately grabbed his camera to take a picture. But his panic drove him to juggle his camera around his hands. But he finally got it, and tried to find an angle to get a good shot of the creature, but to no avail. So he decided to climb up a neighboring tree. His adrenaline got him shaking and almost fell down the tree multiple times, but he finally got into the same height as the creature and carefully aimed to take a photo. But the foul smell that remained on Ted alerted the creature. It immediately looked at the direction of where the smell was coming from. It looked straight at the camera, and Ted accidentally activated the flash, which blinded both of them. Ted quickly checked the photo he had taken of the creature, but then he heard a growl. He looked up at the creature as it glared at him while protecting one of her eyes with her wings. The creature immediately took Ted, which in turn made him drop his camera to the ground and flew away with him. He panicked as he was swept away, and the flash from the camera was still affecting the creature's vision. And they both crashed into a tree as a result, and fell into the deeper layers of the plateau into the lake. Ted had his shoulder slightly dislocated and some of his bones damaged, as well as many cuts and bruises all over his body. But he feared about the well-being of the creature first. This thought filled his mind, driving out the pain he was feeling. He immediately checked up on the creature to see her in even worse condition. She was unconscious, her right leg was broken, her head was bleeding, and there were so many bruises and cuts that she was losing blood fast. Ted immediately applied first aid to her. While the pain from his own injuries was setting in, each time he tightens the bandages, excruciating pain would be felt all over his body. So much so that he teared up from the intense pain. But even so, he still treated the creature first before himself. When the creature seemed to be in stable condition, Ted started applying first aid to himself, and soon, he saved both of them, himself and the creature. He carefully dragged the creature's body and himself with it into a nearby cave and decided to take a rest. When he woke up, the creature was still sleeping. So he decided to catch some food in the lake for them. So he cooked the fish he got from the lake. The creature finally awoke and started to screech and move around in a panic. But as her injuries were far from healed, the pain forced her to calm down. She could only move her head, but she continued to screech at Ted. Ted tried to calm her down. Although she did not understand anything, his gentle tone and voice managed to calm her down. Ted tried to talk to her, but he concluded that she did not know any language based on the lack of responses he got apart from her body language. But then, Ted noticed her stunning beauty. She had white yet relatively tanned skin. Her body was colored with a beautiful mix of shades of blue and white, apart from her eyes, which were a beautiful shade of red. And her body was also well developed in a human standards. Ted offers her a skewered fish, holding it close to her mouth, but then she immediately proceeds to try and swallow it whole. Ted quickly pulled it out, but not without her fighting back. She immediately screeched and growled at Ted with an angry look on her face. Ted apologized to her, but she did not understand, although his tone and voice gave her enough hints as to why Ted took away her fish. Ted removed the skewer and gave her the fish. She quickly opened her mouth to take it. This made Ted jump, and she noticed his reaction, so she slowly reached out and took the fish from his hand and proceeded to swallow it. Ted was surprised by her response to his body language, and after she gobbled up one fish, she immediately started eyeing the others near the fire. Ted laughed and smiled. He grabbed some more fish for her. Ted focused in thought as the bird-like woman ate her food and drank the bowls of fresh water given to her. He decided to call her Nora for no particular reason besides it being a great and simple name. Ted decided that he would take care of Nora until her injuries are fully healed. A week later, Ted would wake up to a very foul smell. He looks over to Nora and found her extremely filthy. Flies flew around her, and her feathers and face were covered in dirt. Ted decided to clean Nora and started to prepare. He prepared bowls of fresh water from the lake and a thick towel to scrub Nora with. Now he was ready. He gently scratched Nora's forehead and waited for her to wake up. Then she suddenly jumped from his scratching and looked around, confused. She stared up at Ted. He said hello and drenched his towel in water. But as he touched Nora's body, she screeched and opened her wings, generating a gust of wind strong enough to knock all of the bowl full of fresh water to the ground. Ted sighed and grabbed some more water from the lake and decided to leave the bowls outside this time. He slowly approached Nora as she was staring right at him quietly. He kneeled down right beside her and slowly touched her right wing. She jumped, but his gentle touch put her at ease. Although she still didn't understand what Ted was doing, but she did not feel any ill intentions from Ted based on the way his hand felt on her wing. Ted then had the soaked towel slowly touch her wing. Although the cold temperature made her jump a bit, it did not bother her. Ted proceeded to clean the front part of Nora's wings, but when Ted got around to doing her backside, it seemed as though Nora was more sensitive on her back, as she stiffened her back just from Ted's touch. He continued to clean her, but the thick towel Ted used seems to be pleasuring Nora as Ted unintentionally scratches her backside. It took a few hours, but Nora was finally clean. She was quite happy, and it seemed as though her injuries were finally starting to heal, as she could move a bit more, but she still could not walk properly. Ted slowly built a relationship with Nora as she would trust Ted more and more. She also adopted her name as Nora because Ted always referred to her as such. They spent every day and night with each other. Nora would sometimes go rogue on Ted, running from him while he was trying to bathe her, stealing most of the fish that Ted caught in the lake, and even scaring him with a screech while he was sleeping or hunting for food. Nora is well known throughout the animals in the forest that even a distant sound from her would drive the animals away from the area. Although it was difficult, Ted made do despite the circumstances. One day, Ted decided to teach Nora how to say his name, Ted. He started by pronouncing the consonant T to Nora. It was difficult, but Nora started pronouncing it as well. Her voice was quiet and light. It could be barely heard. But once she was able to pronounce it, she proceeds to use it as a weapon against Ted to annoy him. Ted proceeded to pronounce Te to Nora, and she picked it up quite well considering pronouncing T almost has a E sound at the end. At this point, Ted realized that he is finally hearing Nora's voice when she's not screeching or squawking at him. It was cute and a little quiet, but it was light. Nora's personality could be identified just from the way she speaks. She was like a child in an adult woman's body. Ted then said his complete first name, Ted, to Nora. But there was a problem. Nora kept saying Tet instead of Ted, which she thought was correct. It took a few hours of him saying Ted with a capital D in order to teach Nora how to say his name correctly. But she kept saying Tet with a capital T at the end. So Ted decided to go for another plan, to teach her how to pronounce the consonant D. A few hours of back and forth D's and T's, Ted decided to say DT to Nora multiple times out of frustration. Nora responded with a tray of teas but then realized she was doing something wrong the whole time. When she heard the different sounds of the consonants, Ted noticed and decided to try and say DT to Nora. She was trying to figure out how to pronounce D, but she ended up making weird faces and noises while she was doing it, which Ted giggled to himself too. But then he finally heard the D from Nora. Nora got excited and started saying D multiple times. But then she confused herself by saying T in between. Then Ted thought she was ready to put her training to good use. He said his name to Nora, pronouncing the D explicitly. Then he heard it. She heard it. They both heard it. She finally said Ted. She got excited and ran outside of the cave and flew out and around yelling Ted. Ted didn't expect her to be quite happy for saying it correctly. She must have noticed his frustration when he was teaching her, he thought. Then Nora grabbed Ted by the arms when he wasn't paying attention. They laughed and smiled together. But Ted's friends would search for him with the help of the TCP. And his friends thought they heard his name being called through the forest. They grew suspicious and followed the sound deeper into the forest. And that's all I'm going to say for this video. This is only like 2/3 of the original script, but we are kinda out of time. And well, anyways, yeah, let me know what you think of the story so far. Also, let me know if you guys want me to record me making the background of these drawings. And also, I want to apologize. This video has been delayed for a few days. I said earlier in Instagram that, you know, it was gonna be out in a few days. Yes, I did specify the date, but I feel like I've delayed this, to be honest. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you like these OC Spotlight videos by hitting that like button or by commenting me to do more. Well, that's all. Hope you enjoyed. And my Wattpad account also, I have made it, and I'm going to link it, but I haven't posted anything yet. Maybe in a month's time, I'm going to finally post the 2 stories I've been talking about so far. And well, yeah, hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for that.